Hello and welcome to Hardin Life Live. We are the Hardins and we are a family of coaches and counselors, and we love taking these 10 minutes with you, hopefully to give you some tips that will help you live your best life. And I think I've got a fun topic for this morning.
All right, let's have it.
I know a lot of the young people are into the Enneagram. Everybody likes to know about themselves, let's be honest. We all sort of want to go, oh, who am I?
And we need to know about
and we
ourselves.
do. But a lot of times it's easy just to lump all tests in the same category. But we really want to highlight this morning that the Enneagram is not just a personality test. The information that it can give you is actually really beneficial for you getting to know where you get stuck, but also how to connect with your partner, your children, even your boss at work.
Well, my work, especially with men, leads me to the observation and the professional conclusion that men especially are not very self-aware. We fix things, we kill things, we manage things, we want to be competent. Am I good enough? But what we don't understand is who we really are.
Well, honestly, anytime you and I take a test, we need to click into that understanding of self-awareness. You can't literally change anything about your life if you don't know where you're at. So, I don't like my work. I don't like the way I function. I don't like my marriage. We'll start first with self-awareness. What the Enneagram does in a deeper level of self-awareness, it tells you really three main things. It tells you what your core emotional longing is. It tells you where you get stuck and how you sort of try to get that need met, and then how you sort of protect yourself from not getting further hurt.
Well, it certainly parallels God's interaction with Adam after the fall. In chapter 3, verse 10, after the fall, God comes to Adam and he says, "Where are you?" It had nothing to do with Adam being lost geographically.
Right.
And so Adam's response is mirroring very much what you're saying, sweetheart. Is Adam's response in verse 10 says, "I heard you in the garden. I was afraid because I was naked, and so I hid." Core emotion, fear. Core motivation, why, is because I was naked. I felt ashamed. I felt exposed. I was afraid I'd be found out. And so what's the core strategy? Hiding.
It's interesting. That verse is very good. That verse also really pulls in shame. When we look at the 9 profiles of the Enneagram, they're actually divided into 3 main sections. And all of us fall in one of these main sections, and they are defined by the emotion that sort of is your undercurrent. And we all have an undercurrent emotion that actually is connected back to our childhood. And you just listed 2 of them. Fear is a core emotion that drives people. Shame is a core emotion that drives people. And guess what the last one is? Anger. Anger.
Well, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram, and so that I know that fear drives a lot of my interaction. I don't want to feel pain. I avoid pain, and I can become, under stress, very fearful.
Right. And when you think about that, it's what also happens with those core emotions is we have our own way of acting them out. And I'll just say real quickly so everybody knows. If out of the 9 styles, if you are a 2, 3, or 4, you are a heart. And you struggle with shame. If you are a 5, 6, or 7, I'm a 5, you struggle with fear. Exactly. And if you are an 8, 9, or 1, you struggle with anger. And it doesn't mean that everyone necessarily sees you acting angry, but it is your push, your underlying push. So when you start to recognize that these emotions are undergirding you, and some of us go more to our thinking dominant, others are feeling dominant, and then others are doing dominant. Now, that sounds like a lot, and you need to read my blog to really lay them out, but here's where it gets helpful. If you know where you are, and you know that your core emotion, say, is fear, you know that you are in the thinking category. If someone's just trying to get you to feel it, that's not going to be helpful for you. That's not where you're going to go first. So knowing your partner where they are, you start to speak to where they are. I need to speak to my fear because that's where I'm stuck. Does that make sense?
Larry Crabb, years ago, wrote a wonderful book entitled Encouragement. And what he said is, if you want to encourage someone, you need to figure out what they are afraid of and speak into that. Go directly there. What are you afraid of? Let me encourage you that which you are afraid of may be something that we can address by discussing it, talking about it, setting boundaries, changing some different things in your life.
Well, and here's where a lot of us need help, because that core emotion, fear, anger, or shame, they started in childhood. And a lot of us say, well, I don't even remember my childhood. I don't even know what I feel. Well, the Enneagram actually helps take you back to that core wound. So even if you don't know all the experiences of your childhood, the Enneagram can let you begin to sort of create a roadmap of, oh, wow, that starts to make sense.
Well, that's how I adapted. I mean, God didn't create me a 7 on the Enneagram any more than he created you to be a 5. What the Enneagram does is help us understand how we have adapted to our circumstances and to our relationships around us in order to protect us and care for us, trying to do it on our own.
That's exactly right. And you know that age-old thing people say, nature versus nurture. The Enneagram is measuring your nurture.
Yeah. And
for you to know that, you can know what you need so you can get unstuck. But it's so helpful when you know where your partner is. And what we really do, we actually use it with marriages. I have my couples take the Enneagram, because the more that you and I can know what scares us, how we get hurt, and we start to create protection, we can, in knowing each other, it creates empathy. And when we can see one another empathetically from their pain, and wow, that makes sense how you got there.
Well, even on a deeper level than empathy, we can feel compassion.
Yes.
And compassion is the deeper sense of empathy. Empathy simply says, I understand where you are. Compassion says, I am with you. And so, like, someone in shame needs somebody to absorb that shame. Somebody in anger needs forgiveness to express it, and also to give it. Someone in fear needs to be able to face that fear, knowing that you have the resources available to you to conquer that fear.
I love that. There's so much we could encourage you to read and learn more about this. But I want to steer you to where we were actually trained in the Enneagram, and the instrument we use that is actually really reliable as compared to some of the freebies is www.wepss.com. Take the Enneagram, see if you can get some insight, and share it with those you love. And if you want to read my blog, go to our website at hardinlife.com. We'll look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Bye.